Hi there, and welcome to episode 50 of the ADHD Adults Podcast.
It's only fucking 50 episodes.
I'll start again. Hi there, and welcome to episode 50 of the ADHD Adults Podcast.
James, did you know last week was our 1 year anniversary and we forgot to even bring it up?
It's the thing, isn't it?
Do you want to start the intro to this podcast? Finally.
Yes. Welcome to episode 50 of the ADHD Adults Podcast. I'm James Brown, the one with emotions, and I'm joined by the one without any, Dr. Alex Connor. Hi, Alex.
Hello, James. Biddy.
I mean, what am I meant to do with that? What am I meant to do with that? Is that Metal Mickey? No, not Metal Mickey. The one from fucking I'd say Bucks. Fucking, it's all gone wrong, Alex. It's all gone wrong.
It's Bucks Roger. The
That's
plural
it, Bucks
Roger.
Yeah, I was going to say Bucks Starbucks for some reason, but obviously that.
Well, you call me an emotionless robot, so I did my robot voice.
Okay. Is this the point where I ask how you are? I can't remember. I don't care.
I'm really well, thanks. Yeah. Excellent. I do have emotions, James. We're continuing ADHD Awareness Month, building, for some reason, a ridiculous number of listeners, which we don't understand. No offense to all 15 of you, but the numbers are silly. And one of them sent us a letter, James.
No, they didn't.
That's right. It's from Robert from Kidderminster. It says, I listened to the episode about square pegs in round holes. James had one of those wooden square peg games for his 6th birthday, and he is really close to competing it. Thanks, Robert. I don't believe he is close. I've been sent a real letter, though. Can I read that one out? It's from...
I'm just not
coughing till after we...
You're going to read it. It doesn't matter what I say. We're professional podcasters.
We're unpaid, charity-based. Anywho, the real letter is from Clarissa from Texas. Have we checked that? I don't think we have. I don't know. I've said it anyway. Howdy. Clarissa from Texas here.
No. No.
I'm so sorry.
Just do it in your stupid Utoxeter accent.
All right. Howdy. Yup, kid. Clarissa from Texas here. I'm listening to your stuff at work, and it has been a blessing. It has truly gotten rid of the you are alone feeling. I mean, honestly, that is why we do it. I'm really glad. For as long as I'm listening, at least, lol. I have a hard time distinguish between y'all's voices. Actually says y'all's. Amazing. But one of you said gag in the term of a joke during the pod about sex, and I felt disappointed. Nobody commented on the use of that specific word. I'm not reading that listed out. I found that a great opening, pun intended, for a joke about gagging in sex. P.S. I love the Klaxon remix so much. I want there to be a full song so I can download it. Can we do that, James? Is that a thing?
So just to let you know that DJ Derek Bowie, our official DJ, and I are working on both a new intro for the podcast and setting up the full versions of the outro and other remixes, which you've heard of our stupid voices on either SoundCloud or YouTube. So yeah, they will be available for people to ignore, laugh at, listen, share, whatever they want to.
That's so good. Me saying Mystic with a bump and grind, bump and flex. Just amazing. Right. We are frighteningly international. We've gone up again by one. We now have a listener who has been to 128 countries. That's the only way I can think about it. We think the new one is Greenland. It was possibly a penguin. That's probably a stereotype. I've now alienated 2 nations. I appreciate that is one. I like to think there's a penguin out there with ADHD. That's why I like the joke. Oh, we're just sitting on this egg, are we, for 2 months? Just staring. Are we?
What the hell are you talking about?
I'm tired. We are, of course, bewildered and grateful to all our listeners. So this week we'd like to say, oh God, we'd like to try and say a big hello and tiki it to our Greenland listener. Oh, that's 3. I'm so sorry. I Googled Greenland language. That's not even it. There's like a range of Inuit languages.
Fucking brilliant. I kind of shudder a little bit at the sheer number of those 15 people that are shaking their heads during this segment. Onward we move, Alex, as usual. This orange cream from a box of Quality Street of a podcast.
I like the orange creams.
Well, you're fucking weird then. They're the worst ones, objectively. Objectively. This orange cream of a box of Quality Street of the podcast is a tragedy in 3 parts. We pick a theme. Last week we talked about pegging, as Alex said, or ADHD and ableism. This week we're focusing on emotions. Thanks to Daisy for suggesting this one. We've talked a lot about emotional acceptance, blah, 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 but this is more about emotional regulation, the fact that we can over or underreact to things and the impact that has on us and people around us. As usual, the 3 pathetically produced parts include some evidence-based psychoeducation delivered in a robotic monotone by Alex the Psychoeducation Monkey.
Hello.
Our personal reflections on emotional regulation. Alex's will obviously be quite short because he doesn't have them. And the third and final bit will be some top tips on how to deal with spunk trumpeting alongside Gaby Logan. So, Alex, without getting too emotional, who am I kidding? We all know you're an emotionless monster. Fire away.
Thanks, James. So we've said this before. The core symptoms of ADHD don't explain either the severity of the disorder of ADHD and they don't explain the functional impairments that we often have and we see. One of the biggest issues, not diagnostically speaking, but one of our biggest issues is the lack of ability to regulate emotions. Emotional regulation deficits, ERDs, have often, if not always, been observed in studies on ADHD adults, and they're associated with significant functional impairments. Adults with ADHD often have, James's rabbit ears, emotional lability and emotional reactivity.
Adults with ADHD often have James's rabbit ears.
yeah. I keep forgetting that not everybody watches on YouTube. I'm doing James's little, because he does exclamation marks for almost literally every adult for James rabbit ears. Yes. So emotional lability and emotional reactivity, little and a lot. What this means in real terms is we are not good at reacting in a way that is expected based on events. We can over or underreact to stimulus, to life events, and we have little control over which way we swing. Ding.
Speaking of swinging, Al.
No, it's not that podcast. It may seem odd to have to define it, but the Oxford English Dictionary describes emotions as emotions are time-limited states associated with a change of feeling, with expressions, even physiology of our bodies. They're not the same as your mood or stress. And the biggest difference between those two things is that emotions are elicited by specific internal or external activating events. Stimuli. A thing happens and we react emotionally. That's what that means. Normally, emotions need us to direct our attention, ironically for us, to this stimulus, this activating event, and then value it with regard to what our personal goals are, our values or whatever. When this happens, emotions promote relevant reactions, such as approach towards or withdrawal away, as well as physical reactions and expressive behaviors.
I've got to be honest, the physical reaction I'm having now and often during recording this podcast is wanting to vomit explosively.
You talk about vomit a lot in insulting me. It's odd.
Like, well, that's because you make me vomit. Can I just quickly? I forgot to say this at the start. Can I just point out that I put out a call on Discord for insults to give you, and somebody gave me the brilliant Jaffa cake. So with the roundness of your head, Jaffa cake face, I think, is now one of your new monikers, Alex.
Yeah, I like that. You could, when you write the script, you need to throw in with a face like a haunted Jaffa cake or whatever, don't you?
Anyway, carry on. Or not.
Yeah, this isn't a script committee meeting.
The latter, preferably.
Right. Emotions are potentially harmful. This is important when they are of inappropriate intensity, duration, frequency, or type for a given situation. And guess which parts of that last sentence are relevant to adults with ADHD? The whole fucking lot. It also seems that the biggest emotional issue that contributes to these issues is avoidance. So a big tie into RSD, our friend. Emotional dysregulation even has an independent effect. So unrelated to other aspects of ADHD, that effect can be on social problems associated with having ADHD in adult life. Our emotional dysregulation helps to explain the presence in adult ADHD of depressive symptoms, impairments of romantic relationships, anxiety symptoms, poorer friendship quality, James, and greater functional impairment.
Got in there ahead of me then, you fucker, didn't you? There's a couple of things I want to say. The first thing is this feels closely related to last week's podcast in that appropriate emotional response is, I suppose, a societal norm, isn't it? That it's, if you like, society that sets what is appropriate or what isn't appropriate, I guess. But what I want to...
It is to a certain extent, but it's we have it. It isn't. We know it isn't appropriate for what we want and what we actually feel. So it's also like objectively and self-determinedly inappropriate.
Okay, that was boring, but probably true. The other thing I want to ask is it all of us? I mean, do we all have emotional dysregulation? Those of us with ADHD.
Yeah, it's such a good question. Yes and no. Maybe there's studies on young adults with ADHD who report rates of emotional dysregulation from only 20% up to nearly 70%. But in others, people have said it's a fundamental factor in all adult ADHD. It's not entirely clear. Why do we react differently than adults who don't have ADHD? There's some evidence, some brain scanning experiments have shown that patients with ADHD had literally a different brain activity during the viewing of a neutral or of negative images. So it lights up on an MRI differently. This activity is known as late positive potentials. That was EEG, if you're interested, not MRI. And it suggests that our brain doesn't communicate inside it, in the actual brain communication internally, as it should in most people when it's challenged with a life event, which can then lead to an inappropriate emotional reaction. So it seems to be a biological thing, not just a learned thing. So yeah, probably.
That's actually interesting for once. I'm obviously emotionally drained from having to speak to you for about the last 10 minutes. So let's take a break and we'll be back in part 2 for some personal reflections on having emotions in the first place, in my case, and in Alex's case, on trying to understand emotions, maybe. See you in part 2.
Biddy, biddy, biddy. Welcome back to episode 50. That's James's age of the ADHD Adults podcast in this ADHD Awareness Month, part 2, where we are talking everything ADHD and emotional regulation, or the dysregulation of our emotional responses. As always, in part 2, we're going with personal reflections on emotional regulation. James, have you ever responded appropriately in any way?
No, never. Apart from obviously the way in which I respond to you, which is entirely appropriate. Yeah, as usual, I've got all the issues, so I'll just go through them in short order. Grieving, first of all, which we I know we've touched on that a long time ago. I think we mentioned about not grieving normally, but I have lost people who were very important to me and had no emotional reaction, no sense of loss, no sense of upset, maybe haven't grieved at all. And I find that more upsetting than the loss of the person, if that makes sense. If I think about the fact that I should be upset, this was someone that was important to me. I should be upset, and that causes a bit of self-chastisement and a bit of self-loathing. A really good example, or 2 good examples, if you like, of the two polar ends of this: so overreaction and underreaction. And I did this in one of our 60-second ADHD videos recently. When I came back from London a few weeks ago, I hadn't slept for a couple of nights, and I'd left my house key at home, so I knew I couldn't get into the house. So I thought I'll kill some time in Birmingham, and I hadn't eaten, so I thought I'll go to McDonald's, get a breakfast. I went to the big screen, made my order, and I was order number 88. And I stood there as I watched order 90, 91, 92, 93 all get served. And I was getting angrier and angrier. And eventually it got to about number 96. And then they called me. And obviously I stomped over like a petulant child, snatched the bag.
Massive baby.
Yep. Snatched the bag off. It was actually a manager and not an employee. Snatched it off him. Then realized I needed sweetener or sugar for my drink, and I had to walk back and say, sorry, can I have some sweetener or sugar? Still staring at him meanly. I went and sat down. I had 3 bags as well, Alex, 3 heavy bags. So lumbered over with my bags, sat down. I'd ordered a bacon and egg muffin, and they'd given me a sausage and egg muffin. I'm sure you can imagine my reaction, considering where I was. I went absolutely fucking ballistic at this poor guy. And even as I was shouting at him, even as I was like saying or shouting the words, I thought, my God, you're a cunt. Not to me, not him. I thought, why are you doing this? Why are you saying this? It's a fucking breakfast. Couldn't control it at all. Even as I was saying it, I was thinking, stop. Why are you doing this? Massive overreaction. Massive overreaction to something that's just not important. Now, if you compare that to, we've got 2 shit cats because Mrs. ADHD picked them. And the only reason we got them is before then we had 2 really good cats called Jermaine and Brett. And Brett got strangled by somebody only about a year into his life. But Jermaine was an amazing cat, was like the only cat I've ever had that I loved. It had personality. It would meet us when we got home and it would rub itself against my legs and sit on my lap, and I fucking loved it. And it got killed by the next door neighbor's dog, and I buried it, and didn't bury it well enough because the next day a fox had dug it up and spread all of its body parts across the garden. And I raked up the cat that I loved dearly and did not have a single emotion. I wasn't upset. I wasn't angry. I wasn't sad. I just raked up a cat, buried it, and put a slab on top. And that is clearly an underreaction. This is a part of my life that was very important. I didn't feel a thing doing it. And for me, go on.
I'm both like moved and sad for you and hurt, but also there was a lot in that story that you just went over.
Yeah.
Wait, no. Jermaine that you love, you just kept saying it.
Yeah. I call Sam it.
Killed by a dog, and then the other cat was strangled, and you just left that, did you?
Well, mate, it's a long story that involves a cat getting strangled, basically, by somebody that lived 2 doors down. We didn't live in the best area.
Wasn't that long,
Alex, to be honest. Well, that's the abridged version. But for me, those are the for me 2 poles of over and under reaction to situations that probably required, a different emotional response, or would normally elicit a different emotional response. There's loads of other stuff. I've talked about this before. This was at the start of my journey post-diagnosis of toteming, and trying to accept my ADHD. We ordered a new dishwasher, and obviously I thought I'll fit this without reading the instructions, and I snapped the hose, and I cried for 3 hours because I'd snapped the hose. Because I'd snapped the hose in a dishwasher. Fucking wanker. I cried for 3 hours on bed until Mrs. ADHD said, just tell him to send a replacement. Say it came like that.
Oh, I know that feeling though, that hopeless feeling of
it is. Yeah. I just thought you just fucking you've broken this thing. It's cost you 400 quid. You're gonna have to buy a new one. You're useless. You're rubbish. It's terrible. Cry like the pathetic thing you are. And then all of a sudden it was gone, and I realized it was fine. Again, an overreaction. But at the other end of the scale again, and I know we spoke to Jules recently as a paramedic, and I'm not for a second saying that I have the same ability to deal with situations, but in the past, I can remember us driving home to the same house where a cat was strangled, and somebody deliberately ran out into the road to get hit by a car in front of us, about 3 cars in front. And again, stopped the car, jumped out, ran over without any emotion. It almost felt like autopilot, just ran over, checked this guy was alive, awake, was breathing, called 999. No fear, no anxiety, no racing heart, no fight or flight response, just no emotional reaction at all. And I think that's probably an underreaction to what is, for most people, a very stressful and upsetting situation.
No, I think that's true. I think Jules is a paramedic by diagnosis more than career, and that's probably true for a lot of people in those sorts of jobs.
And then just to finish off, and again, people that follow my personal Instagram account, I don't know why you would, because it's shit. Recently, I was paralyzed by the fact there was a spider in the bedroom, and again, almost crying when this
was it
spider...
venomous?
Well, we live in the UK. All spiders are venomous. You know this. They just don't have big enough teeth to break our skin in this country. But when that spider started crawling up the quilt towards me, I screamed, kicked the quilt off, and then slept downstairs. Well, I didn't sleep. Lay on the sofa downstairs through fear that this small creature that couldn't possibly hurt me was somewhere in my bedroom. So that just gives you a little bit of an insight into the way in which my emotional response to stuff is just fucking way off a lot of the time.
Are you always scared of spiders, or was that just an unusual?
I don't like them. I wouldn't say it's a full phobia. I really don't like them. But normally if they're in the room, I can deal with the fact that they're in the room. But I was paralyzed. I lay on the bed as it crawled up the wall and then across the ceiling and just watched it and didn't get out of the room, didn't throw something at it to kill it, I just lay there paralyzed in utter fear. What do you mean good?
Shouldn't kill spiders. Friends.
They're concentrated evil. They should be burnt with hairspray and a lighter.
Nope.
Anyway, what about you? I know you don't have emotions in general, so it's going to be a short section, I guess.
Well, the joke's on you, James. I know I'm a robot, but I, in fact, do have emotions. And the joke is I don't have emotional empathy. That's the very clear difference. What I do have, though, is massive emotional dysregulation. I do not have appropriate emotional responses either in society or even for my own choice, much at all. They either they go hard or they go home. They're massive emotional responses. Like exactly what you said. Yeah. We've talked about grieving. We've talked about road rage and those sorts of things. But it isn't just those big ticket items. It is everything. I wrote lists of things I've smashed stuff against the wall because of. 1, couldn't find the hairbrush for the kids. 2, didn't want potatoes. 3, tired. And then things I've remained dispassionate during with no heart rate. 1, an actual bar fight that I was in. 2, a full car crash where we spun and landed on the roof. I genuinely, in my head, I went, wee, while it was happening. 3,
fuck me.
A friend died, and my brain went, I'm hungry. And that was my emotional response. I'm hungry. When can I go away and get some food? Because I was looking at this person's partner, the husband, and my brain was going, "Oh, I am really, and I do care a bit, but my brain just went, I'm not feeling anything, and I don't know why. I don't like it." Yes, James.
Can I ask? Obviously, that last and very serious personal reflection. How did you feel about it then, and how do you feel about it now?
Do you know what? There's part of me that likes it because I don't want to feel what I've heard everybody else feels. Yeah. And I feel like, oh, thank God I'm not, really sad, because that sounds awful from the songs and books I've read. I've read a lot of songs. But at the same time, obviously massive shame and embarrassment and that same thing. And sometimes I feel I miss out, because that isn't right. And I know it's not right. It's useful when it's lack of emotions, but when it's too big emotions, and friends of mine from university still laugh about the potato thing. And it was so inappropriate. And of course I didn't know then. I just looked like a total wanker.
Are these when you say friends, are these kind of real people or the imaginary ones that you usually talk about?
They're like a smiley face painted onto a paper plate that I won at a fair. So essentially, I can't trust my emotions. That's what I've had to learn. I don't trust them, and I say that out loud to people. I have to walk away if they're disruptive in a normal environment in my relationship, or if I'm having these feelings where they're everything, and these feelings are everything. I will never forgive you. I walk away. I have to take 5 minutes. I go into my little office corner, and I sit there, and then usually within, I would say, 15 to 20 seconds of being on my own, I don't care anymore. And I can see their point of view, and I come back in and I say, "Oh, sorry about that. I don't care about that anymore. As you were, please." And they have to deal with it. So I have to get out quickly before I've said something like, "I want a divorce," because of the sausages. And that's...
I think I've just skipped forward to make sure you're not going to say this in top tips. But for me, that last bit is actually really powerful, because one of the only things that I see as a positive around my emotions with ADHD is they're generally transient. And that means if I do overreact, then not long afterwards, it's back to normal. So that taking a time out, and we talk about this when we coach people, it's difficult, obviously, to be able to do that. But if you can take a time out, often it passes relatively quickly, that intense rage or outrage. So
just a fucking bunch of toddlers. That's so ableist. I do apologize. Internal ableism. We're not a bunch of fucking toddlers. We've got a literal neurological disorder. No time for the game.
No, it actually says in the script, time for the best game ever, Alex, because you didn't tinker with it for once. So
I forgot.
As usual, you can hear me coughing. You've got a choice between smoking and laptops. Is it going to be laptops? Is it going to be laptops? Should we say laptops? Laptops, yeah? Laptops? Laptops.
I'll have cigarette smoking, please.
Fuck's sake. Okay. So, as you know, and you were quite happy about this, recently I managed to stop smoking and turn to a vape. I found a vape that gave me almost the same level of internal quiet, which is the only reason I do smoke, sit outside and have a fag with a cup of tea, etc. And kind of smoking a bit now again. And the quiz is about that.
You look cool like James Dean.
I think I look cool like James Dean.
Jesus. Oh, that is some lack of awareness, isn't it?
It really is. I mean, maybe James Dean now, because he looks a bit different. But so basically, the question is, why is it that I've started smoking again? Is it because I like it, first of all? Secondly, is it because I lost all my vapes? Or is it because I forgot I'd stopped smoking?
Oh, that's a really good one. Oh, that is a really, the last two. I don't think it's because you like it, because you don't like anything at all, because you're a grumpy twat. And I think, objectively speaking.
Yeah, agreed.
Toilet wall graffiti is anything to believe. I don't think you lost your vapes because you only got one, and therefore you said vapes because you wouldn't remember to buy two. So I think you forgot that you had given up smoking.
I think it's a reasonable approach, and it's wrong, obviously.
Oh, I can see you. I can hear it in your smug little voice. Can you hear everybody hear that? Oh, you've done very, very well for a wrong person.
Well done, Alex. You tried very hard. You get a silver star for taking part. No, I bought Alex 8 vapes. And
I thought, as soon as I was saying it, I thought, this isn't right. You would definitely buy loads of vapes.
I bought 8 vapes and lost them all. I say lost them all. I've just noticed one underneath a shit ton of cable. This is my desk for those that are watching on YouTube. Like underneath,
that picture of me is old, and I was ill at the time.
It was last week. I've just found one of them underneath a pile of cables, but that's one of 8. And because I lost them all and just needed something, I went and bought some fags, and I'm smoking again. So, in short, you're still shit at this game, and sadly, I'm smoking cigarettes again. Time for us to take a break, and we will come back for the final part of episode 50 of the ADHD Adults podcast, where we'll give you some probably pretty useless tips about emotional regulation. See you in a bit.
Off a ton. Welcome back to episode 50.
I have to guess when you're actually going to bring us back in. For people that obviously don't get to see us in the break, Alex won't count. He refuses to count down from 3, 2, 1. So what I just had was CBA 1, 4, 3, and then he came back in.
I usually wait for you to start talking, don't I? What are you doing? Welcome back to episode 50 of the ADHD Adults podcast. We're over a year old, James. Little crawling toddlers. We're talking about everything emotional dysregulation. As always, in part 3, this is our time for the
spunk trumpeting.
Gaby Logan of all spunk trumpets. I don't know what any of that means. We're doing top tips. James's will be terrible. Mine will be passable because they're evidence-based. James, what's your top tip for emotional dysregulation? Bearing in mind, you have it all the time and don't do anything about it.
Fucking hell, I feel seen with that, to be fair. Yeah. Oh God, you throw me there because actually clearly everything. Well, to be fair, most of my top tips I obviously don't apply to myself because I still have all the shit that goes with ADHD. We talk about emotional acceptance, blah blah blah,
blah blah blah,
a lot, and that's the first thing I'm going to say is actually accepting you've got ADHD. At a fucking cellular level, deep inside your core, you accept your ADHD can help, if not stop you emotionally reacting inappropriately, but it can shorten the window in which you give yourself shit for doing that. And that's something that has helped me, Alex. So if you think about the dishwasher example, that maybe 6 months before would have been a week of low mood, depression, hating myself, endless negative thoughts, just spinning around in my head. I can't believe you did that. But it was reduced largely through, me toteming Ding and Mrs. ADHD pointing out the fact that we could get it replaced to 3 hours of crying, which is still pretty shit. But at the end of the day, that's better than a week of very, very, very low thoughts. So sometimes that toteming, that being able to step out of time when you're emotionally labile and saying to yourself, it's not me, it's my ADHD. I don't want to respond this way, but I can't control it. Can, if not stop you under or overreacting, can maybe stop you self-chastising for doing that. Equally, if you can, try and allow yourself time to acknowledge your emotions. The walking away thing is important, but equally after the event, if you've not controlled it, just having a think, writing down your emotions and realizing again, you're not often in control of them. And if the inappropriateness is internal, if you feel it's an inappropriate reaction as opposed to it being societally not deemed appropriate, then you have a little bit of control over how you respond to it, even if you can't control doing it. The last thing I'll say is explain to others. This is all about, again, disclosing ADHD, which you don't have to do, obviously, but if you can, explaining to others who might find your reaction odd that emotional dysregulation is part of your ADHD can hopefully help them understand you better. And if they don't like it, fuck them. What about you, Al?
Yeah, I mean, I wanted to say all of those things as well, but that's why I went second, because I knew you'd have a baby tantrum. That's ableist. You made jokes about that. What I would say, everything you said, James, bang on what I think as well.
Just stop there then. Just stop there then. That'll do. That was episode 50.
No, it wasn't.
Yeah.
Using my wristband. The thing that works for me, and everyone's different, so I'm not giving advice. I'm just saying how it works. So I don't take myself out of time with the wristband. I use it to remind myself of the things that I have and what are important, and I'm doing okay, and I can. So it's very similar, but what you think about might need work with a counselor. You might already know, but it's very personal. What I do want to say, though, is something my mum used to say to me, that you must always be kind, because when you say something, afterwards, you can't unsay it.
Yeah.
Well, Team ADHD, and I'm really sorry, Mum, you're normally right about everything, but you're wrong. You absolutely can. If you've got ADHD, I've learned to say, I need to unsay that. I said this yesterday, and I was pretty clear about it. I now do not care about that thing. Can I take it back, please? It was impulsive. I'd like to unsay it, please, because I don't feel that anymore. And as long as people understand, the people that you love and care for, as long as you've talked to them about it beforehand, and you let them do it too, especially if they've got ADHD traits, I feel that's worked for me really well, to be able to say, oh, do you remember when I told you that was the most important thing to me in the world? I don't care about it. That was 8 minutes ago, Alex. I know. This is how it is, and I'm not gaslighting. I'm not saying, well, anybody would. I'm saying this is a disorder, and that's going to happen, and I'm sorry. I think it's the emotional equivalent, James. Have you ever been on holiday and you've been needed to buy something, and you're sure you're going to love it and want it back in rainy Birmingham, and then you get back and you've bought a hand painted wall tile with your house number on it, with in clay, and you don't like it anymore. All the feelings are like that, I think. That's my tip. Ask permission from the people you care about to unsay or unfeel something if you don't feel it anymore, if it was emotional.
I think that's fair enough as well. And I mean, have I ever bought anything on holiday that I won't want when I get back to rainy Birmingham? Is that the most rhetorical question kind of ever
it
expressed?
Is, but it wasn't literal. You can unfeel, can't you? So our emotional reactions are exactly like that.
Brilliant. Okay. Well, that brings us almost to the end. We've got a product recommendation. I've got no fucking idea if this still exists because it was taken off from a website I found recently. And it's Ruggy, the alarm clock rug. And apparently it does what it says on the tin. It does what it says on the tin, which is it will only turn your alarm clock off if you stand up and stand on it. So for people who set a reminder, for example, and use an alarm and would normally just, I'll silence that. Yeah, you have to physically stand up and stand on the rug, and that can sometimes be enough of a yes, Alex, your hands up.
Oh, fucking typical. They call themselves a charity, and they're massively in the pocket of big alarm clock rug.
Big Ruggy. Yeah, like I say, it might not exist. It might only be available in America, but I like the name really, which is why I mentioned it. So that was.
You could just put your alarm clock on the windowsill, of course.
Yeah, or yeah. All right, it's fucking cheaper. Fair enough. You just fucking shat all over my product. Why didn't you check the script? Why didn't you check the script and put a better one in, Al? For fuck's sake.
Because I forgot, as you well know.
Thank God this is the end of episode 50, our half century, if you like, 50. Of the ADHD Adults podcast during ADHD Awareness Month 2022, where we've talked about ADHD
expected life expectancy.
Where we've talked about ADHD and emotional regulation. In the unlikely event that you enjoyed this episode or any of our episodes, which is highly unlikely, why not support the show on the link provided? As otherwise, Alex is going to have to enter Britain's Got Talent as a singer. Please don't let this happen. I'd also like to quickly mention again, get on Discord. We've got a community there. If you want to, there is a link on our bio on Instagram. There probably isn't one on Twitter because Alex is dead thick. If you'd like to get in touch with us on the socials, it's at ADHD Adult UK, and we will see you soon. Take care.
Bye all.
Trigger warning, klaxon, 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 klaxon.